welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master, Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Hey, Anne-Marie, I have a question for you.
Oh, shoot.
My question is, have you ever wished you had a doctor in the family?
I did have a doctor in the family.
You did?
Yeah, my uncle, who was also from Virginia. He lived in Virginia for a while, but he was the one from Minneapolis. He was a doctor.
Okay. All right. Did you lean on him for, medical information?
Yes, he was very handy to have around. That's certainly for sure. My parents, who seemed to go through every medical emergency for the last 40 years.
I hear you. It makes total sense. Well,
he actually diagnosed himself with a very rare form of cancer. That's how good he was.
Wow. Well, I'm not sure if that's good or not, but I get your point. Yes. Well, this is going to sound very familiar because our guest today has a very similar experience to yours. We're going to hear about that in just a moment. Her name is Christine Brodmerkel, and Christine, first of all, I got to say, she lives near where I used to live in Virginia. She lives actually very near where Thomas Jefferson lived, which is very, very cool. And by the way, if you are inside the U.S. and haven't visited the area, Charlottesville, or if you're outside and considering a place to go, it's a good place to go. It's a really interesting visit to the homestead of Thomas Jefferson. You learn a whole lot about how the country came about and what the different issues were that were going on and so on and so forth. I don't know. For me, it was fascinating. Maybe it's not fascinating for everyone. Is it fascinating for you, Christine? I mean, you live there. I mean, you have to deal with it all the time, but.
I think it's pretty interesting. And I wouldn't say that I found it interesting before I got here. I got here a long time ago, but it has been fascinating to go up on the mountain and really look and think and walk in the steps and wonder about the man, his whole community and what he offered. And
Monticello has the whole deal. I mean, because he was a slave owner, and that has all the issues that were tied in with that. Something you might be interested in, Christine. My sister has written a play that it has not yet been performed, but it is a play that is about the relationship between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings.
Wow. Let's get it out there.
Sally Hemings was one of his slaves that he had a relationship with. So that's where the big controversy comes in. Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
Well, it has a lot going. We'll talk about that for an episode one time, but for today we'll go in a different direction. So Christine, you got to tell us your history. I mean, Thomas Jefferson's history, that's very cool, but you have a history too that's going to bear directly on what we're talking about. So tell us your history.
Well, back to the question Walt asked Anne-Marie about the doctor and the family is really where some of my earliest thoughts came that were letting me know something wasn't right. So my dad was a doctor. He was a very good doctor, very excelled in his field, contributed to the field of gastroenterology, and loved teaching, fostered a lot of residents who came through the systems, and was innovative and really loved his work a lot, and maybe loved his work, at times I thought probably more than
a little too much. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No. If I was going to write a memoir, that would be some significant chapters in there. And he was fortunate to have something that really, he probably knew from a young age, he wanted to be a physician, and his family supported it. And he went to medical school. He was entered into medical school and started attending before he even got his undergraduate diploma. Literally, he had to go back and get one last little thing, but he just knew, right? He just clearly contributed to the field because it came from, deep inside of who he was. And that's great. But as a kid, I had a challenge with my family. My mom was an alcoholic, and that was all during my young years. I don't know. It started before I was born, and it lasted well into my early teens. And that was difficult. That was difficult for her. And for my dad, it meant that I think it pushed him further into his work and away from the family. So she really felt as if she was a single parent a lot of the time because he was so into his work and enjoying himself. And it was very acceptable at the time. Those years are the late 60s, early 70s for me. And then, all of the 70s. So rah, go you professional man, and mom staying at home with 4 kids. and she did a great job. However, she wasn't always present. And so we had an interesting shell of a life. We had a decent success happening. My dad was the first person in his family to do well like that, and got to enjoy that financial comfort and opportunities. But there was a lot missing on the inside. We did not have emotional conversations. And in fact, we had a lot of trauma. I witnessed a lot of trauma between my parents because of the alcoholism, and didn't have a connection with my mom. The same reasons. And I'd get this little wondering every once in a while. And I didn't even prompt it. I was too young to prompt it, but I heard a little voice in my head just surfacing, probably while I was just doing other things. I need a doctor. I need somebody to help me. I need some help. I need somebody to almost fix me. And that it was really haunting, honestly. It's almost weird. For a child to hear that and then have to just tuck that away. I didn't have a parent I could take that to, or any close relatives. Nobody lived near us. And I just had to handle it all on my own. And I know a lot of people have handled a lot of their childhoods well into their adulthood. And it drove me, though. I think I had a sensitivity about something was bubbling that needed to be addressed. And I started researching psychology pretty early.
Wow.
Started learning. I was reading My Mother, Myself. I can't remember who wrote that, but in my teens,
the title. Yeah.
Right? That was one of the first big pop psychology books
Right.
about relationships. And I was like, what's going on here? I need some help. I went, I got a paperback at a store in a mall, and, felt something was driving me, and it just continued to grow. And I have found since then that I've really been on a lifelong search of how do we heal? And I've studied so many modalities. One time I tried to list them all, and I everything from psychology and on, but reflexology and even just, body healing techniques. And of course I got my master's degree, but it just plant medicine, on and on and on and on and on. And I do practice a lot of those, and I've supported myself, healed myself, and contributed to my family and my community that way. But the question always came back to, how do we heal? Because I felt like something was broken. I needed some help, and I thought it was outside of me for a long time. And then I, over the years, realized, well, it's all inside of me, how I heal. And I can use all these other modalities, support, therapists, doctors to help me. But ultimately, I decide somehow, some way, shape, or form to heal myself.
Or at least be willing to try. I mean, that you have to have the willingness to at least go there.
Well, exactly. And it doesn't guarantee it's that I'm going to heal the thing, whether, it's cancer or, broken this or that. But I do believe at this stage in my life that it's about the journey.
That's one of those throwaway phrases, you're on the journey, enjoy the journey, and so forth. I honestly think half the time we use that phrase and people don't even know what it is.
I agree with you. It's used in a rather flippant way, right? As if to just chalk it up to the journey. But the journey is it's where you face your demons, it's where you face the tears and the grief, for instance, over my mother being an alcoholic. It really took me into my 40s before I really could acknowledge it and feel the grief and feel the child that was extremely afraid and felt abandoned. And I ended up confronting that while I was in my master's of counseling psychology program, in the in this strange safety net of learning and doing the work myself, in order to realize, wow, that really was a massive weight, a massive series of confusions for a child, disorientation to who I am and how a relationship could be. And so it took until that time to really have the strength and capacity inside to realize how damaging it was.
And well, you used the key word there. I think we hadn't really delved into it yet, but the key word is relationship. And that what you were dealing with was the lack thereof. I mean, it just wasn't happening.
Exactly.
But you were at an age where that's where the modeling is going on and there's nothing to model. Well, that's pretty stressful. I mean, deep down, you're supposed to be modeling. You don't know who to model, and there's nobody to model. What are you supposed to do?
You pick up here. This is where we start talking about the subconscious mind. You start picking it up from all around you. You pick up the dysfunctions. Yeah. Even though you don't consciously want that, you pick up from the people around you. Could be you find other authority figures who you might try to model, but you don't have their whole picture because you don't live with them. But a teacher, a friend's parent, a cousin, an aunt, or an uncle that for me, I only saw them once a year, maybe, trying to cobble together. And the subconscious mind is hungry for that. I'm trying to figure out, who am I? And I made mistakes along the way. I didn't have enough data points to have healthy relationships. So I ended up in very dysfunctional relationships with boys, thinking that's where I was going to get my love, because I wasn't getting it from my dad. He was busy at work, and I wasn't getting it from my mom because she was just unavailable. So I was trying to figure out what was love, what was connection.
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. And it's a key question, because when you're in that place and you're trying to, like you said, piece it together, little bits and pieces, you're never getting the full picture on anybody. So you never get a full picture, first of all, what it is to be a self. And second of all, you get no clear picture of what it is to be in a relationship other than superficially.
And Walt, it sounds like you speak from some kind of experience there.
Well, 13 and a half years of doing a podcast helps a lot, let me tell you.
You've heard a lot of stories.
Oh, tons of them. But there's also my own stuff too. Yeah. It's a combination. I mean, I didn't have that kind of situation where my parents were distant and unavailable. I had my own set of issues. Everybody does. But I've talked with enough people that I have a pretty good idea of all the different kinds of issues. I was actually married to a psychotherapist for 23 years. So I got that. A couple of my friends, one of my other co-hosts is a former therapist who's a life coach who went through all of his own stuff. He had gambling addiction. I mean, I've heard I've had so many different perspectives brought in that I kind of feel like I lived them without actually living them. So yeah, I have some idea about it. But in the course of acquiring all that information, I've really come to appreciate not just what happened with my own experience, but what happens with other people's experiences. I mean, boy, doing a podcast like this gives you all kinds of perspective that you never normally get. And that perspective really makes clear to you how often so many of us are working with so little information and amazingly actually filling in some gaps fairly well, but there are some gaps we just don't fill in well, and that's where the problems come in.
I like how you said that. Yeah. Yeah. It is astonishing, but what's astonishing about that is also the what looks like magic sometimes is, how do we come out of that?
Yeah.
What resource do we finally find ourselves in touch with? Right? Because those whether it's your crash and burn moment or dark night of the soul, you get somehow in touch with some other part of you that helps come in and reorient, redirect, rejuvenate, enliven. The sky cracks open in a new way, and it's there. It is there.
One of the most fascinating things to me is how the way I like to phrase it, I like to express it in terms of the way we think of the heart. I mean, beyond being an organ of the body, but the spiritual, metaphysical, emotional heart, and how the way I like to think of it is, you can always trust your heart, but we don't believe that. For some reason, maybe because of experiences we've had, the last thing we're willing to trust is our own heart. So we trust our brains, we trust what other people say, we trust all these other stuff. And part of that whole going in routine is actually learning to trust what was there all along.
Well, I think you hit on something really important, because I think I have not known how to hear or feel my heart. I feel like it got closed down, and so I don't know if either of you have felt that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right, like what was that something? And that lack for me, the narrative I've built out of it, which is only just to me a narrative that makes sense in the moment, because I like to work with a deeper, wider, broader, older set of ideas of who I am and where I come from. But my narrative was, I didn't get mirrored by the people who I needed my love from,
right,
in order to show me who I was. You know, they didn't look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, I just love you so much. Oh, look at," and they didn't do that little that speaking through the heart waves and whatever that is, where we're channeling or opened up to love, the love that we are, and then sort of sharing it with the ones we're with. And I felt my narrative is that I didn't really get taught how to interpret those signals very well. So it came, I just am not was not as acquainted with it, and had to learn that through a lot of other fields.
We have these other experiences in life that basically teach us to wall it off. You described how we wall it off. I mean, we're encouraged to by large segments of our society. It's kind of scary, but it really is true. We are encouraged to wall off those feelings from educational institutions, from religious institutions, from political institutions, from social institutions. I mean, it's amazing. How do we survive? Sometimes I don't even understand how we survive, but we do. Somehow, at least some of us are able to reconnect with some help. More and more, I think, are doing that now than ever before, which I think is a wonderful thing. But still, I'd say it's a minority still. It's not the majority of the population that's doing that. And even with that fact being in place that so many people are not doing it, people still find ways to kind of connect a little bit, which is, to me, that just speaks to how wonderful we are as human beings and how powerful our minds and our hearts really are. We're able to break through these things, not completely, not healthily, perhaps, not as well as we could, but we find ways to do it anyway. And as using the term you used, we usually do it through the crash and burn moments, because that's where we get exposed to them most, boisterously, perhaps is the nicest way that I can think of to say it.
Right. Well, and when a lot of those crash and burn moments have to do with losing something. And when you're confronted with the loss of a relationship or a situation, a job, or, even, like leaving, you lose your home or you have to move, you're seeing the absence of it. Right. And so then you're able to feel that contrast, and it's like in this dualistic world, we can't live without that contrast. It shows us. Seems so simple, but geez, can we have a break sometime?
Well, we're also addicted to it. I mean, that's one of the things we talk about here. How we love the contrast. Look at how we get entertained. All of our entertainment is based on the contrast and how deep the contrast is and how horrible this situation is. And it's exhausting. But that's the way the culture is put together. And I think that's one of the reasons why people are able to achieve some breakthroughs themselves. And I take a lot of heart from that. The fact that it's always good to get support. It's always good to get professional help. But the fact that we can break through ourselves, that to me just says we have all kinds of potential for getting back what we lost, for acquiring what we felt like we never had in the first place. It's all right there.
Yeah, it's wired, primal, it's innate. There's so many words that we could put to it, but we do have that spark of divine leading us forward, like trying to find that. I was thinking about it earlier. It's just always seeking that. I don't want to say it's easier, because it's not easier, but there is a place of ease and peace. And there's something we all know about that. Even if you could say, "Oh, I've never felt that." No, that's not true. You have felt that. You know what that is.
Yes.
Right. It's like you can't take that. You can't separate that off from the human. So that some part of us knows, just keep seeking that love, that connection, but also, inwardly. And it's going to drive you to find the helpers, to take walks in the woods and listen, try to connect with your higher self, to keep finding the ways to do it. And I celebrate that. That's I live and breathe that all day long. And I just love to see people who call me. They're like, they have just been trying so hard to get healing, and they just know this one next step is the right step for them. It's so exciting to be there at that moment.
Especially if it's tied, like in your case, it was tied to parent or lack of parent connection. I mean, Anne-Marie has 2 daughters. She's experiencing that. You're experiencing this on a regular basis, right, Anne-Marie? Yeah. You're experiencing what's involved in that connection and what you're feeding back to them and what they're feeding to you, what they're cluing you in on. I mean, all that's really big.
Yeah, it's huge, and just so much to learn all the time.
which is great. The fact that you're willing to learn. I mean, her mom wasn't really willing to learn. You're willing to learn. That's a big deal.
I try.
Yeah. And you do very well. You do a good job. I know you do. So, all right. So you came through this rough period, but the rough period sent you on a path that has basically been a life path. This is not something that was like a 5-year plan. This has been going on for quite some time, Christine. So talk about that journey a little bit. I mean, we were talking about the other kind of journey, but that's a journey too. Talk about that journey a bit.
Well, the journey of just being in the healing profession is what you're saying, and healing myself simultaneously.
Yeah.
And that is a really, it took me a while to realize what I was doing. Well, that's the one thing. I was studying all these modalities, and there's I knew I was healing myself in different ways, but also was just very interested in healing in general. And it started dawning on me, this idea of how do we heal? But there's a archetype called the wounded healer. And I never knew what that meant. And that was another gift from graduate school. And I went to a graduate school which was out in California. I'm here in Virginia. I tended to go west for my schooling, as if there was just something archetypally set up. I did my master's. I went west for my undergraduate. I went west for my master's, and I appreciated the school because we could talk about archetypes in a deep way. And I was in an expressive arts module and wanted to work on this idea of what was this wounded healer. And I realized how critical it was for me to understand that all the work that I do to learn about healing, to assist other people in healing, to help my children heal, help my husband heal, just my community, I had to make sure that I was healing myself and not healing them as a substitute for my own healing, that I was engaged in my own process. And what was exciting about that is it actually opened up the door of realizing I had so much more to heal about myself. And that the healing, all the wonderful modalities, plant medicine, homeopathy, energetic healing, those were all wonderful, but that I really had to make sure I was healing myself so that I'm a clear channel, a clear healer, and I am not skewing, whether I was a psychotherapist or hypnotherapist or anybody, that I'm not trying to continually, secretly, subversively, unconsciously, subconsciously heal myself through healing another person, right? Almost like doing a substitute healing. And that just made me so much more clear, strong, and capable as a healer to be able to hold the difficulties that people bring to me and sit there in front of them and hear stories, be present, be empathetic, and think clearly and carefully with them, for them, in collaboration with them. And it really has given me the green light to continue to work deeply on myself and also help other people simultaneously, and just be so aware. So whether it's, my issues around guilt, that, I got into a relationship with somebody that didn't last, and we made 2 children, and then I feel guilty about that for decades. So that healing that went on for many years, and it's probably still going on right now. Or healing poverty consciousness, scarcity consciousness, which for me, I think goes back lifetimes. Why does that still keep coming up? And being confronted with, well, that business didn't work. All right, let's try something else. Let's try real estate. That didn't work. Why is that not working? Just continuing to try things over and over again, to, again, all of these opportunities are the reveals of patterns that needed to be healed and continue to need to be healed in my life. And they keep opening up new opportunities in my life to explore whether I'm interested in things, but also ultimately I'm seeing this incarnation for me as a lot of healing me.
You brought 2 particular thoughts. Actually brought a lot of thoughts to mind, but there are 2 in particular that stand out. One is I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a Reiki 2 practitioner. And Reiki, one of the key principles of Reiki is that the Reiki practitioner doesn't actually heal anybody else. they do their own healing. The Reiki practitioner is helping to move the energy, kind of in line with what you were just talking about. Along a similar line, I mentioned my ex-wife was also a psychotherapist for a number of years. And one of my favorite stories that she used to tell is how right after she had just entered her graduate program, she was going through like her first weekend retreat kind of a deal. And I believe it was where she was first starting to practice, how do you work with a client? How do you deal with all that kind of thing? And one of the things that she found to be very frustrating, she actually also found this to carry through when she went into practice after she got her degree and went out into the real world, so to speak. She would get frustrated because she would get clients and she wouldn't be able to heal the clients. And it took one of her supervisors to point out to her, no, it's not your job to heal them. She says, what do you mean it's not my job to heal them? No, it's your job to provide the information. It's their job to heal themselves. And it was a real breakthrough moment when she heard that. So those are the two thoughts that came to my mind when you said that, because that's the core of it.
It really is. And it's interesting. There's some of us here on this planet who feel a lot of responsibility to heal other people. And I believe that that's one of those narratives to unwind and to perhaps set straight and really honor. And I think, Anne Marie, maybe you feel this with children, like, whew, they've got to live their own lives. Oh, I'm there, I can help them, but yet I have to step back and, get back into my position. And it's a challenge. Like, what is the role of the healer, of the mother, of the parent, to foster the growth and development, the opportunities, the awakening? And it's confusing. It's really confusing.
It is. I mean, how many children, if they listen to their parents all the time, would end up very confused adults because they just wouldn't know how to make those decisions, to make those mistakes and how to learn from them. So I think it's really important. I mean, my kids ask me stuff and I'm like, I wouldn't advise it. Your life.
Which makes you a very advanced mother, by the way.
But ultimately it's their decisions, and it's their learning curve.
Yeah. And that's just life. And they have to do their own crashing and burning. Yeah, unfortunately. Yep. We sure did. We sure did. But the letting other people have their sovereignty to learn their own lessons and to let their creative healing intelligence come to the fore and take the next step. Like as a Reiki practitioner, perhaps, people are coming to you because they want something, right? And you're there to just, I don't know, I'm curious how you would say it, like, to facilitate something, to witness them. And, I am too. I have like techniques and, processes, but yet I feel like I'm there just to say, yeah, let's do this. You got this.
The way I think about it, I mean, everybody who's a Reiki practitioner experiences it differently. The way I experience it is actually quite different from the way most Reiki practitioners do it. Most of them, they get visits from spirits and they get animals and colors and all this other kind of stuff. I don't get any of that. But what I have is a very high level of sensitivity to the physical energy that goes on within a body. So I can just scan my hand over a body and I can tell you exactly where you're hurting and where everything is feeling fine and where the energy needs to move. And then my job is literally to make sure that everything is working continuously and there are no blocks in the way. If I've done that, then I've given you what you need in order to heal. And that's the way I explain it. I say, it's not up to me to heal you. It's up to me to clear the pathways so you can heal yourself.
That's perfect. I mean, if there was a judgment, like I appreciate that so much, because that I feel like is what I do in my work. I want to help clear the pattern so your natural brilliance can come through. And this is just a pattern that's clogged up your system.
I had a really interesting experience with that over the weekend, actually. I went to what they call a Reiki share, different Reiki practitioners coming together and doing Reiki on each other. And I was in a room with 3 others, and the woman on the table told us that she was missing cartilage in her wrists. That's the way she expressed it, which I thought was kind of odd, but okay, go with that. So when it came time for me to actually work on her wrists, I worked on her left wrist first. Energy got flowing just fine. Didn't take all that long. Wasn't all that difficult. Went to the right wrist. And it was as if there was a line right before her wrist from her forearm beyond which the energy would not go. It was like the energy would flow up to that point, and that was it. Nothing was going to, there was a dam right there. And I said, well, this is interesting. I've not experienced this before. So I spent like the next 10 minutes trying to just guide and, ooze the energy, just kind of, like butterscotch, kind of spreading it across that part of the, and it was resisting and resisting and resisting. I said, this is really odd. I've never had this kind of a clear delineation like that. Eventually, I was able to get the energy to go there. And I figured, okay, now I've done my job. Now she can use the energy to heal her wrist. But it really illustrated for me how we really are good at blocking things.
Yeah.
To degrees that just blow my mind that I can actually feel in my hands. Like, oh my goodness.
That's fascinating. And I would be curious for her what rose into her consciousness from the subconscious mind as a result of that. Like what sense, what narrative, right, did she make of it? In my world, it's like, well, what blockage just got dissolved? What are the words, or what is the word for that energy, or what story comes from another life that she now can resolve more easily?
But I can tell you that I told her what I had encountered. I started off by saying, do you have more trouble with your right wrist than with your left wrist? And she confirmed that she did. And then I explained to her what had happened. And she had this look on her face that basically said, really? That's happening? So it was so new. She had not had enough time to process it. Yeah.
But I think it's, as people who are healing in whatever format, by not just waving a magic wand and healing people and getting people to rely on you, you're helping people build that toolkit for the future, so that when all these things pop up, they've got more ammunition to heal themselves and get themselves through these situations in a much healthier way.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Anne-Marie. Instead of, for instance, what I like to invite people to do is don't pathologize yourself, right? There's a reason for that block in the wrist, right? And yeah, you go to your doctor. Like if you need a doctor, please do that. Sure. But also understand that there's something else there that might need to be cleared, healed, understood, let go of, some ideas that you have about yourself. I can't tell you how many people just don't feel worthy of being well, or not good enough to be well, or too guilty about something to be well. And it's that's just kind of the conversation with almost every client. There's some version of one of those primal ideas, limiting beliefs that they have that can translate into physical disease as well as emotional and mental disease.
And you mentioned growing up in the 60s. I grew up in the 60s as well. So when those of us who can look back that far can also look at our peers and see exactly how it's playing out amongst our peers. I mean, there are so many people around our age who you could just tell what their mindsets are just from what's going on with their bodies, from what their infirmities are. So it's kind of scary, but it's right in front of you. You really can't avoid it. It's right there.
Yeah. And that's been because health has been an interest of mine since I was a teenager. I do pay attention to that. And it's interesting, the path that I've taken, and sounds like you too, paying attention to how what we're thinking translates to what we do and how we feel.
And by the way, that woman who, the wrist issue, she was also a Reiki practitioner. She was actually a Reiki master, one level up from me, and very heart-centered, very connected and so forth. And yet she didn't know about that particular thing, which just goes to illustrate, even as you learn this stuff, even as you start applying it, you find stuff along the route that you didn't know about before. And it's a never-ending journey of just discovering more and more and more and more.
Well, that's why it's the journey, right? Back to the journey, because each of these turns and twists and revelations just opens up more to surface and heal.
Yeah. And it's ongoing. It's also fascinating. Well, I know it is for you because that's what you made your life, is focusing on all this stuff. But I'm certain it's fascinating for you. It's fascinating for me in the last 15 years, but for you, it's been like an entire lifetime.
Yeah, it really is. And I do think that it's not even this lifetime. It was probably over 30 years ago that I first got in touch with this idea about past lives. Incidentally, from a lady who I worked for Hampton Roads Publishing Company, and that used to be right here across the street from my house. And
oh my goodness,
Kelly Neff published a book about her life with Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, wow.
She was Martha Jefferson. It's a book called Dear Companion. And so if you, was it your sister? She might want to check that out. And
I can guarantee she already has.
Okay.
He did very in-depth research.
It's a pretty interesting read. And during that time when I worked at Hampton Roads, I was learning all about past lives because I was the publicist and I had to read all the books of all the people who were publishing interesting stories. And I started doing past life regressions for myself. And it just really helped me understand this longer narrative that I believe we all have. And I know not everybody subscribes to it, nor do they need to, but just that this healer part of me that has been active many, 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 many lifetimes and continues to seek its expression in this lifetime to do the healing perhaps of me this time. I don't exactly know how this story ends, but it's just revealing itself slowly over time as I get older. And it just seems to make sense. And that's all I need to know is it makes sense for me that this is a very long journey of healing.
You'll also be interested to know, you mentioned the book by this woman who had the past life connection to Martha Jefferson. My sister met two women from Charlottesville who have since passed on, named Anne and Anna, who identified that they were connected to Patsy Jefferson, and I can't remember who the other one was connected to. And the stories they had to tell were absolutely fascinating. So, I mean, when you mentioned that, all my ears, my senses all pricked up like, oh yeah, I've heard this one before.
Well, people tend to congregate in certain areas, is my sense. And I see, Anne-Marie, I see you're nodding your head too. Just this sort of, I don't know, this is an interesting place. That was a pivotal time in history. And yeah, that's probably a whole nother hour or
at least, yeah.
Like a week's worth of chatting about that, because it just starts to open up our minds a whole lot more about who we are and what we're doing. And it's really entertaining too. I got to tell you, I just love thinking about it. And Kelly had the author had some connections with me as well. That's why we felt connected. So yeah, she situates me back there as well.
That's very cool. I like that. Yeah. It's one of those pretty esoteric topics that it could rub many people the wrong way. And if it does, I totally get it. I mean, honestly, it rubbed me the wrong way for the longest time until I finally realized that there was actually something to it. But, that's a personal decision that you make, and you make it based on your own experience, and your experience is going to be different from mine. So, if you're not there, I get it. Whoever you are listening in, if it doesn't fit you, it doesn't fit you. But for those of us it does fit, it is fascinating. It's really interesting. And to have the conversations with people who have the ability, this is the part that really gets me. They're able to connect to their past life. I mean, I've done a small amount of shadow work with a guided person and so forth. And it's a fascinating thing to go through. And I kind of buy into it, but I still have a high level of skepticism associated with it. I have both. I've got both going on at the same time. I have the experience of having done the shadow work and actually literally felt when souls were being peeled away from me and sent off to heaven. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, it's one thing to be told it. When you actually feel it coming off your chest, you say, wait a minute, what? So, it's a fascinating thing to go through these experiences. But I think the point that I'm aiming up to here is that it isn't so much that they're wild and crazy experiences, it's that they're real to us. When we experience what seems real to us, I think that's when we're doing that heart connection we were talking about earlier. That's when we start to believe not just in these experiences, but in ourselves more, because we're really echoing what has been going on in our hearts for forever, but we kind of shut it off. We kind of didn't believe it. We didn't trust it. I mean, you mentioned earlier how you didn't feel like for the longest time, I didn't feel like I had any kind of heart connection. I mean, this was a relatively recent experience for me to discover this. And what I ultimately realized was that I had known the connection all along. I just didn't recognize it for what it was. The way I like to express it is, it's like there was a light that was always on, never got turned off. And because it never got turned off, there was no contrast. That, the duality was missing. So I kind of dismissed it. It's nothing. It's not a thing at all. Well, it actually was a thing. But for years, I didn't think it was.
What an interesting awakening.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. But what we're talking about is emotion, right? It's that felt sense, like somehow we feel. I think that's what you're saying. Like it's like a feeling that it's not a mental thing, right? Because we know
it's definitely it's in the chest area.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've noticed in the past life regressions I do with clients and with myself is it's really the emotions that get trapped that perhaps you were talking about there, like that. And when I see people go into a regression and they allow themselves to feel the feelings of that other person, because it feels like another person at that moment, because they're just looking at, but they're feeling the emotions, a sadness, right? A guilt, regret, something like that. It's like, well, where did those emotions come from? They're coded into that part of who you are from way back then. And it's just letting those go. It somehow validates the whole thing, but just that it's their feelings. They're coming from usually this part of us during that whole expression. And sometimes they're really positive ones too, I have to say. It's not all the negatives. You can go back to past lives and bring positive, helpful, supportive skills and just good experiences into the present by recalling them.
Well, I think also we made reference earlier to the exploring the dark night of the soul and crash and burn and all that kind of stuff. Even those actually end up creating the positive experience in the long run, not while you're experiencing them. When you're experiencing them, the last thing you want to do is to be there. But afterward, I mean, I still have trouble wrapping my mind around this. I've heard it so many times from so many different guests and speakers and so forth, but I still have trouble wrapping my mind around how is it that we come through these crash and burn moments and we end up at the end of it looking back on it and saying, wow, that was a really great thing. There was nothing good about it. What do you mean it was a great thing? But it really was. It's where the best things happen. It's where we learn the most. It's where we have the biggest breakthroughs. I mean, one of the biggest things for me was, I can't even point to a particular incident. I had a big crash and burn in 2008, like so many people did. My business got wiped out. But I can't point to that as where this happened. This thing happened that I'm about to mention. Somewhere along the line, I started being kinder to myself. I have no other way to explain it than that, to express it. And from that point on, all of a sudden, I started having not only a better experience within myself, but better experiences with others and getting feedback from others that I had never gotten in my life. Feedback about, oh, you have such a positive energy. What? You didn't know me 20 years ago, did you? That kind of a thing. I think that's the point. When you do this work, you end up producing results that you don't realize you produced until somebody else points out to you, hey, you had a pretty good result there. Really?
So do you think that you have to be actively engaged, right? Because you've got a whole group of people who are like, we're into talking about this. I'm into the healing. You're a Reiki master. Like, it's just like, we know we're interested and there's something here to, the wounded healer, like there's something here to heal and to help others with. But there are a lot of people who go victim. They just go the victim route.
Oh, no kidding. That's one of our favorite topics around here. Yeah, we live in the age of the victim.
Yeah, that's down to that accountability that we mentioned earlier. Having that accountability for your healing or being in that victim mode.
Yeah.
Do you think, or what do you think you were doing to transform that tragic time into gold? Well, back when your business crashed and someday you woke up, you were just slightly different, or was it massively different, kinder to yourself?
I can't point to any one instance because I don't think it was one. I think it was just a sort of a continuous curve. But what I can kind of overall in general point to is that when you hit a crash and burn moment, one of the things that makes it crash and burn is that you can't fix it. And I'm a male. Males are like, we're like drilled with being, we're the fix-it people, which is kind of crazy, but that's another topic entirely. The point is that I couldn't fix it. There was nothing I could do to fix it. And that's pretty humbling. But not only is it humbling, it opens you up to the possibility that you don't have to be perfect anymore. And when you don't have to be perfect anymore, then you can be kinder to yourself. And when you can be kinder to yourself, that's what creates that cascading effect to the result that I ended up experiencing. Now, where did that start? I'm not sure. 2008 is my best answer. It's kind of started there, but it didn't end there. That's for sure.
Well, in the model that I work with, just to try to understand how we work, it's a model. It's not the real thing. Those kind of epic moments, those are like these breakthrough moments. I'm not going to say it was a peak experience, not quite like that, but it could have been a peak experience of you recognizing, acceptance, right? Just that, and how that reoriented you. And I just appreciate that it happened gradually, but something in the subconscious, because we do, if you're going to take a ship and turn it, it can happen, quickly sometimes, but more often than not, it's sort of like a new piece of information got in there, and then your behavior just gradually shifts. But it sounded like it was pretty epic time.
The ship metaphor really says it very nicely, because an ocean-going ship takes 20 miles to come to a stop. I mean, it just takes a long time for it to happen.
Yeah, and I go in the summers. I like to go up to the St. Lawrence Seaway. I don't know if you ever get up there from Connecticut, but you can watch the freighters and the salties go down the St. Lawrence Seaway, and they have to get a special captain, hire a special captain to come on at the beginning of the channel, because they know how to navigate. And there's a couple sections where that will take the boats around it, and they do have to turn. And it's can you imagine all those little incremental movements that you're dealing with, just to turn a little bit and try to stay on course? It's a precision operation. I don't think we're that precision, humans, we're probably a little looser gooser, but that it's change happens gradually. But I think there could have been a decision on the subconscious level, and not to overanalyze your situation. But again, I'm always taking in data. How do people change? How do they heal? How did that one moment turn into something that changed your life?
Yeah, I have thought about it. I have wondered where I would point to. I can point to one very particular moment. It's one that Anne-Marie and I share in common. We went through a boot camp that was put on by a friend of ours. It's kind of similar to the way therapy works. It's a little bit different from it. And when you come through at the end, one of the things that you go through is inevitably at some point during one of the modules, you have a crash and burn moment that kind of catches you by surprise. It's kind of built in. It's not something that's planned. It's not like at chapter 3 you're going to have it. No, it's different for every person. It could be the first module, it could be the last module, it could be anywhere in between. But you can be sure somewhere along the line there you're going to have one of those moments. And my moment came actually in the first module. And I think that was one of the times I can point to where I could see that something had shifted within me. Like, I wouldn't have been able to necessarily tell you what it was, but I felt better about myself. That's the closest I can come.
Do you think that's because you're constantly doing this, Walt? You're constantly thinking of ways to improve yourself or heal yourself, or so it's a lot smoother of a journey for you?
Well, I'm not sure if smooth
it doesn't feel smooth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no big dip. It's
right.
Few dodgy waves.
Well, I think you said the key phrase. It's an ongoing thing. It's the ongoing thing that makes it so hard to pin down what the point is, because they're all points. Every single point that happened along the way, good, bad, or indifferent, was a point. So which one I'm going to say is the point? I don't know. It was all of them.
Yeah, either that or you're just hard-headed and you can't see it. Like sometimes I feel like I'm hard-headed.
I can't rule that out. That's quite possible.
I'm not having a breakthrough now. Nope, not me.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare rule that one out. That would, yeah, that's like a self setup right there.
But it's interesting because I'll hear from clients who've done hypnotherapy with me, and in fact, somebody just contacted me. It was last week, and we did some work. Oh gosh, 9 months ago, and on her finances and not feeling like she had like she just never was raised with having to really take a stand and do things and make retirement accounts, and it was it's just stuff that just kind of slipped through the cracks. And she called and left a message and she said, "You know what? It turned out just the way that we planned it. I'm doing all the things that I said I needed to do, like speaking up, advocating, planning, the money's flowing." And I was listening, and it was fun because it was on a message and I could replay it. And just the tone of her voice was relaxed,
Yeah.
the sort of natural way of her living into what she wanted, what we designed for her. And also she had to remove some of those blockages, right? Get those things out of the way. So her natural desires of how to be in alignment with her money. And I just chuckled again. I was like, she had the wherewithal to realize, oh yeah, we worked on this 9 months ago. But I know that a lot of people don't realize what a beautiful natural progression it is for them to stand more in their power when those cutoffs, those, like for you with the Reiki, the same thing, when that blockage is removed and the energy is restored, it's just wonderful, right? It's a natural, just feel more like being who you want to be.
And we haven't touched very much on the hypnotherapy side because you're a hypnotherapist, and the hypno part is actually a pretty important part of this. Let's at least take a few minutes to talk about that piece, because
absolutely,
I mean, the hypnosis side has a lot of it has a lot less stigma attached to it now than it did 25, 30 years ago, but there's still some there, and a lot of it has to do with people just not really being sure what it is or what to make of it. So let's just talk about the hypnosis side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have either of you been hypnotized or done any kind of hypnotherapy?
I have done it a few times. I can't tell you how brilliant I think it is.
I have also been hypnotized. Yeah.
Okay, good. So with what we find still prevalent is a misunderstanding about what is the state we go into. And the misinformation often stems from media, misportrayals, the movies, stage shows where people seem to lose control, right? They are now under somebody else's control. And that's unfortunate because stage shows are, for instance, very funny to watch if you've,
Oh, they are. They're hysterical.
it's just fantastic. And you can really see the power of the technique. And I don't do that. I'm not trained in that. But a stage hypnotherapist is designed to find a person who is extremely responsive and will follow along very easily. And it makes a great show.
Absolutely.
So, but what we actually are doing in clinical hypnotherapy is giving the person way more control over their mind. It's the exact opposite. And so that's why we have, for instance, hypnotherapists are working at the VA hospitals in order to help vets reduce their pain. So they're having control over their pain with their mind so they can diminish the perception of pain. And that gives them relief, gives them a chance for their body to relax and reset. And I have clients who've worked with me with pain control and they've experienced the same thing. So that's one of the pieces, is that it's giving control back. And when I let people know that, okay, now we have to deliver. How do you help somebody get control? And what I think the other misunderstanding is, like, how to give control is you're going into this very relaxed state. It almost doesn't make sense, right? And I'm asking my client to just listen to my instructions and follow along. But I think one of the key things is that hypnotherapy, there's a lot of different kinds out there. To give that control back to the client, we really have to collaborate on exactly what they want, right? So if somebody's sitting with me, it's like, well, what do you want to tell yourself? How do you want to see yourself, feel, how you are in your body? What's your vision? What's your imagination? And so this co-creation is a key piece of hypnotherapy being effective, because it has to make sense to the person, but also the power and control of like, hey, they're involved in this process. We in my style, I call my client a co-therapist. We're doing this together. And just like, well, with your Reiki, like you're helping facilitate the client finding that healing. You're helping remove the blockage, but they have that innate source of power inside of them that we want to have flow through them. And I do believe that we're all helping each other in some way, shape, or form. When somebody comes into my office, I might feel more, I'm doing my work. I'm doing all my healing of myself. I'm holding the space for them. I'm believing in them. I have techniques. I have my intuition. I'm helping hold the energy field that they can move into a higher state of healing and openness to their own healing. But their words and their ideas have to be central to what is planted. We say, what we command the subconscious to do, or delivered to the subconscious, so that feels really empowering. So that's usually taken in a very calm state where you're not thinking about the grocery list. You're not thinking about that you're chilly, or you're not worried about something. And so we really focus the mind and we relax the body. And this allows a part of the brain that's always worried about all that other stuff and might also reject some of these ideas. We just tell it to go be bored over there in the corner. Just take a nap. And we speak directly to the subconscious mind. And then I'm using the words that I've literally had approved by my client for their specific thing that they're interested in. And that's where it becomes very empowering for them. And it's, believe it or not, to me, it is hard to achieve that state, but it's also so natural for us to be in this state. It's a busy, busy, busy world. I mean, you can be busy all through your sleep, listening to things. We're just so surrounded by how to keep our minds busy. And this is really, the practice is partly to put all that away, put all that aside, so that we can start having a more open communication with our subconscious mind. And that is we're just not in this modern life. We're not patient for that. We're not calming down and telling everything else to leave. We're taking more and more information in. So I think more than now than ever, helping my clients learn how to do this. All my clients have some homework to keep learning how to keep opening that communication with the subconscious, so that they can, like Anne-Marie, like you said, like it's a tool that they can use. You come up with a new problem. I've just taught you how to do self-hypnosis. You can make some suggestions, and you'll feel that empowerment if you learn how to follow through.
And you just touched on something really important, self-hypnosis. There are different levels of hypnosis. And I think one of the great perceptions, maybe misperceptions, is you have to be at a certain depth or else it doesn't really work. And to me, well, I always kind of snicker at it. I'm kind of curious what your take is, but I think about, for instance, the first level that so many of us have been in so many times when we've been driving down the road and we can't remember where we went. It's not like we were ever in danger. Our subconscious mind knew perfectly well how to drive a car, so it drove the car, no big deal. But that was a hypnotic state. Well, is that deep enough? There are differences of opinion among hypnotherapists. I've had a number of therapists on the show.
Yeah.
Different ideas about this. But I'm curious, what's your take on this?
Well, exactly. Good question. And I am, I believe that there is a general idea that certain challenges that people have can be addressed at different depths of trance.
Okay.
So it's not a one size fits all, but there is a pattern that some issues are best treated with a deeper level of trance. Some are can be handled at a lighter level of trance. And we have had people who talk about trance and study trance, define what these different stages are. One of them is when you wake up in the morning, you're kind of in this, you just kind of don't want to wake up. And you might even feel that disinclination to open your eyes. Well, that's a sign of that we use for hypnosis. Like, are you in hypnosis or not? Is I don't feel like coming out of it. Okay, that's one of them. Okay. And you might feel that at night too. You start that. So the morning one is hypnagogic and the evening one is, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm just ready to go to bed.
Mhm.
That's hypnopompic. And, those are trance states. Those are very light. And then you have the next stage down, which a lot of people can kind of get more easily into in self-hypnosis by themselves. And that's the beginning of the light medium. And that's where we can begin to do some work. But if for some of the deeper, older issues, they might need to go deeper into
Mhm.
level 4, which is going to be where it's just you're much less responsive. You are quieter, deeper, calmer, and your focus is so fine-tuned that you're really not you're hardly even aware of it much going on around you at all. But that's where some issues may need to be addressed to be most successful. And then there's a stage after that. There's a few, and those can be used for medical purposes. For instance, anesthesia, to do hypnotherapy for anesthesia, and those are where you're just it's somnambulism. There's a state called that, the Eisdale state. These are just jargony words to go even deeper, so that you can and that those states have been used for hundreds of years to be successful with surgery. So they're there, but for the kind of change that maybe we're talking about, how can we deal with grief, or how can we deal with habits? How can we deal with anxiousness? And that can be dealt with. You don't have to go into that sleep state at all.
One of the things that fascinates me too about the hypnotic state is I remember the first time I was hypnotized, I was somewhere around, I'm going to say mid to late 20s, something like that. And the gentleman who hypnotized me, he wasn't a professional, but he behaved professionally. So I got to give him credit for that. And I don't know what the name of the level of depth was, but I would say it was probably like second level. Not quite, the level of driving the car, one level down from that. And the reason I'd say that is I felt like I was disconnected from everything except his voice, but I could hear his voice very clearly. And I could remember his voice very clearly. And one of the things that he would say, he would do these checks, to see where I'm at. He would ask me things, say things to me. And basically, I think he was looking for physical cues, and I don't even know what the cues were, but he was looking for them. And he would say, okay, I think you're at such and such a stage. If you're at this stage, please give me a signal. Thank you for that. They would be like, no delay. And I'm thinking, I didn't move. That's what it felt like. I felt like I didn't do anything at all. Where's he getting this signal from? But he kept doing that over and over and over again. And it actually made me kind of suspicious. Like, is he really doing anything here? Is this a thing? I don't know. But what I've learned over time is we really don't have a clear idea of what happens when we're in the trance. We have some idea depending on what the depth is, but there's a lot we're just really not clued in about.
And that can be kind of scary for people, right? Like that adds to the, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Did you ever figure out what he was seeing?
I never actually saw him again, so I don't really know what he was doing. I never got the chance to have that conversation with him. Because after he brought me out, we had some other event we had to go to, and then I never saw him after that.
I'd love to tell your audience, your listeners, what he may have been seeing.
Yes.
Ideomotor. So he probably was noticing that you were making little motions with your fingers that you were not aware of. And this is called an ideomotor response.
Okay.
So we can ask the subconscious, if I have contact with the subconscious, can you signal on one of your hands? And you'll see a quick flick of the finger. Sometimes it's slower, but we can set these up in advance with the client and actually go through a whole process. So it's fully clear, totally transparent what we're doing. And the client's listening the whole time. And then we can debrief at the end. Did you notice your fingers were moving? And usually my clients will say, yeah, I kind of knew they were moving. And that's a helpful way to do it, so that you're not left in that suspicious what's going on.
Right.
But every now and then, what I'll notice is my client, the body will give us signals. The subconscious will give us signals. And that's just something to learn to read as a hypnotherapist. I might say, just let me know when you've integrated that. And I had one client who just did a whole body. Her whole body shook. I was like, okay, thank you. Thank you. I was kind of just looking for just a little signal to let me know, because we hadn't set it up, and I got the full thing. I was like, all right, moving on. Thank you very much. But so that ideomotor response has been used for a very long time in hypnotherapy, and it's a fascinating one. So you had a firsthand experience.
And by the way, just so people can feel reassured, when I was in trance with this guy, I did not feel any threats at all. There was nothing that felt threatening, and that's a really key point, because we really do have a lot more control than we realize, because we're the ones allowing ourselves or not allowing ourselves to go into trance. So the control is there, and I think it's important to bring that point out.
You're exactly right, and that's why I encourage people to really do a great job researching who you want to work with, get to know them, get consultations. It's just feeling comfortable and peaceful and trusting is key.
Well, you just gave me a great segue. So if somebody wants to do the homework on you, how do they find you?
Well, they can look me up. I have a long last name, but I don't think there's any other hypnotherapist with my name. Christine Brodmerkel, hypnotherapy.com. That's where you'll find me. You can find a link on LinkedIn, but going straight to my website, just Christine Brodmerkel, hypnotherapy.com is a great place to check me out. I like to teach a lot about what we're doing. And so I've got a lot of pages on my website, and that seems to be really helpful for people to hear about it and start building that trust. And I like to educate folks when they're in the room with me. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. Is that okay with you? And so that process that you mentioned about feeling in control and knowing what's happening and feeling consent everywhere along the way is just really important. That's what I would want as a client.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't even consider doing something like that if I didn't feel that level of control, because that can just be terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. So I work with clients one-on-one. That's my primary thing I love to do. And I enjoy working with folks on a wide variety of issues. I'm a certified medical support clinical hypnotherapist as well. So what that means is I like to work alongside doctors for people who have a care team, for instance. I have a client with irritable bowel syndrome. So she's got her programs that she's doing, and I'm just helping her with her pain relief. And I'm providing a complementary therapy for her, and it's working fantastically. So I work with a wide variety of issues, mental, emotional, and physical.
Do you like hearing from people, even if they're not ready to become clients, but they just have questions about something, or they want to share something or whatever?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a contact form on my website. It goes straight to me, so you can be assured that I'm getting it. And I love to answer questions, because a lot of people need a lot of time to consider, is this the right thing for me? And, what does it work for this?
Right.
I do Zoom sessions and in person. So some people are far away and they're wondering, how does that work? And I love to educate folks again. So what I find is folks come to me when they've tried a lot of other things. And those other things have either they worked for a while, or they stopped, or they just have not found the thing that's really helping. So I find that extra time that I can take, or the extra time they're taking to find the next thing, is so important on their healing journey, that I want to make sure they get their questions answered and feel comfortable, because it could be one of those pivotal moments where that ship's really going to turn. And I want to make sure that if I'm the right person for them, let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I'm on board with you. We have a couple of things we like to do at the end of every show. One of them is I like to bring Anne-Marie back in to share her perspective on what's been going on and how she would tie it all together. In other words, what are the big points that she picks out of it? Partly because she's a co-host, partly because she used to be a listener. So I figure she has the listener's perspective. So Anne-Marie, I know you've been thinking about this. I could just tell I've been watching your face the whole time.
Oh, I got so lost in this conversation. It was beautiful. I just love the fact that we discussed the journey, but not in a cheesy way, just in such an authentic, beautiful way, and the importance of working on yourself and listening to your heart, because I think that's something that we quite often numb. There's a lot of things out there to numb that heart and not feel those emotions. So I thought that was really beautifully done. And steering your ship, perfect analogy, but having, you know, an expert healer to guide you along the way, taking those small movements that have those big impacts to your destination. And I think what I loved about Christine in this conversation about healings is how person-centered and how she works with the person rather than just a symptom, and really trying to tie it into what's really going to work for them. So I think it's important, because I like a lot of these therapies, but it's so important to have somebody who's going to hold that space and that energy and guide you into that empowerment and keep that conversation open with your subconscious. I loved that saying.
Really good. Thank you. Yeah, you tied that together beautifully. One final thing that I like to tie in, now that we're in the 21st century, where you could be in Charlottesville and I'm in the Hartford, Connecticut area, she's over in the UK, and we're in each other's living room. And that wasn't possible 60 years ago, let alone, no, 30 years ago, let alone 60. I mean, it's a very recent phenomenon. One of the things that goes along with that, of course, is that a lot of the things that we used to do to, you know, build a business, promote what we're doing and so forth are very different now. And so that's why you've come onto this podcast. I'm sure you're doing other podcasts. You're probably writing stuff. I mean, there's lots of different things that you're doing, and you're touching people many times that you'll never even have a conversation with them directly. You know, you won't find out what they gained from you and how they applied it. And so you're helping people that you don't even know how you're helping them. And I thought to myself, you know, we should start recognizing that. So, Christine, on behalf of those people you've never met and never seen and never will meet and never will see, who you've been helping with all these different ways that you're reaching out, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. And I agree. And I also want to say, in the face of the daunting task of promoting oneself, it's taken a long time for me to even hear my own voice and put myself out there.
I hear you.
Right? It's mostly been in these private rooms with my clients. So that your acknowledgement lands on a tender heart for me. And so I thank you for the encouragement to keep doing that. And I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for a really stellar summation. That was beautiful.
You're most welcome. It was easy to do.
So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.